What's the Church of Scientology so afraid of?
This is SPTV.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning or this afternoon or wherever you are. Before we start, I want to acknowledge 5 people. Yesterday, I announced the Indiegogo program to raise some funds to accelerate the release of my book. I had 5 very generous donors. Specifically, I want to call out Valerie Smith, who was generous enough to get us halfway to our goal single-handedly. And also Leah Utara, Snooki Rydon, Elizabeth Oz, and Ann McKernan. Thank you very much. Also tonight at 8 o'clock, I'll be doing another installment of Saturday Night Confessional. I'm just going to call this the surprise edition because I have no idea what we're going to do yet, but I know it's going to be good. Sterling Tompkins, I knew him since he was a young man, and he ended up, he was born into the sewer. Some of you may have been seeing his story. He's been visiting some of the different channels on SBTV and so forth. But the thing we're going to talk about today is life on the movie set at Golden Earth Productions. So I'm going to let him tell his own story. So why don't we just give a big welcome to Sterling Tompkins. Hello, Sterling.
Hey, how are you?
Pretty good.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, no problem. It's my pleasure. You know, I was so happy to talk to you and reconnect you. You were really a bright spot. I'm trying to think how we first met. I mean, I think we first met actually on the set when you were cast to work in a film, no?
100%. That would be the first time. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I met a lot of people, but there's a number of films that called for someone like you, young, handsome, extroverted,
I would argue that it was young and looks like everyone else, but okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
We'll go with that.
Yeah, you can just take the compliment. The casting department at Gold, I think you'll recall this. Everybody at Gold, in Cine especially, well, probably more beyond that, they live on approvals, right?
Yeah.
It's like your entire existence revolves around 2 things: your performance from the previous Thursday and what you got approved. And the higher on the food chain the approval came from, the more you were allowed to survive, the more air you got to breathe. If you were submitting things directly to David Miscavige and he was approving them, then, you were a champion, right?
Yeah. So true.
So once they would get a talent approved, and I would tell them, yeah, I like this guy or this person, whoever it was, that was it. They get submitted on every film. So, but in your case, it was, sometimes it created conflict because I'm like, why do you keep throwing this person at me? But in your case, it worked out because there was a number of parts that you were perfectly suited for. And I'm really curious to get your recollection of those.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be fun. And I haven't thought about that for a long time.
Well,
to be honest with you.
You were in 2 or 3 of the big major productions that we did.
Yeah.
2 with Jason Begay. You wound up acting with him.
Yes.
So
and
those are the
something
ones
I'll never forget. That was such a fun experience. Absolutely fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll go from there. So I think the first one you're gonna have to definitely correct me on the names because
It's no problem. We could, and then later Mark Headley's going to correct me on everything. Yeah, that guy's got a memory like a steel trap. I mean,
I know, dude's an elephant. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's insane. He's really
it cracks me up how good. And he's also a great storyteller, which I am not. So that's why I just like answering questions.
Yeah, well, between the 2 of us, we're 1.5 good storytellers. So
they're good. Then maybe it'll work out. Maybe we'll get.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah. So, and I don't even remember the first time I was on set. I just remember when we got to when I left the Int Ranch and came to Gold, or I was in Simo Gold but came to the Gold base.
Right.
I think the first thing I ever got cast for there was tons of. I mean, there probably 50 to 60 smaller little things I was in background or I was walking, like the very famous orientation shot where with the you could jump off the bridge, or you could. I
Right.
was one of the background.
Oh, right. In the
Yeah.
background was that insane people going in the door, like
Yes.
they're being sucked into the mothership. It was so crazy. That's right.
And we shot that. That was a Kubrick shot, right? That was a Stanley Kubrick. We shot that over and over.
A very long shot, and every second was an opportunity for a screw up.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we did a lot of takes on that. I mean, the shot itself is so spooky. I wish I could get a hold of that film.
Right.
I mean, the shot, it's just, it was a Hubbard-defined shot, and it was, even when I was doing it, I was like, wow, this is really creepy.
And it was shot in LA too, actually. That I believe that one. That was before.
It was. That was at a time when we had outgrown the gym. Some of our viewers may have seen an episode with Mark Fisher on and Janice Grady about the gym. They did. I don't know if you saw it, but
I did see that one.
Yeah, they got these photos. Sterling, it blows my mind. The photos these guys have, you know, just as an aside, this is a total rabbit hole, but they were in the Sea Org. I think it was in the days before the East German police took it over. You know, after the Berlin Wall fell and all of the Stasi agents had no place to go, so they all joined HCO in the Sea Org, right? Because the place became like, what happened? I mean, I was literally like, can we have your phone? I'm like, no. Okay, well, you need to take any photos out of there. And there, you know, it's blah, blah, blah. But anyway, if I wish I had pictures of that stuff, because
I mean, amazing. They're talking about drinking beers when they're done with the work at the end of the day, and stuff like that. I mean, even when I first got to Gold, honestly, it was before Dave kind of went off the deep end, because I think it was before the Lisa McPherson trial.
Yeah, what year? I'm sorry, Sterling. What year was that when you first got there?
93, 94, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I remember we used to go home on the weekend, and again, this does not mean it's an ideal situation, but here's my memory. We'd go home on the weekends. We'd sit in a hot tub. We'd order pizza, and all the younger group would gather in different dormitories and watch movies, right? Or, you know, someone would have a VCR and stuff like that. But we are going way off. I'll go back to
but just so I can make one point, we are reminiscing about times past. We're not longing for those days again.
Yes. Okay, not at all.
Two very different things.
Yeah,
we're like, Go on. Sorry.
And there's tons of little horror stories in there, but like, so I think the first one I did with you guys, or with Jason, is the famous CIA office boy, CIA.
Oh, right. Yeah, I have go ahead. I got to see if I can.
And what movie was that? EM1 or TR1?
That was TR1. Yeah, here you are. Here's there you are.
There it is. So that's after the CIA headquarters blows up, and I believe the shot was Jason, myself, and Tate Rupert coming out of it. They did a rubble pile out.
You're crawling out of the rubble of the exploded building,
which is where the castle, around where the castle was eventually then built.
Right, it was on the pile of rocks that was like on the river wash, the flood control channel.
Exactly. And it was at night, and I remember the whole thing, and my hair was actually twice as long as that, and they had to cut it back and all. Anyways, that actually was shot though about 3 to 4 months after the original shots on the set at Norton, I believe.
The shots in the office.
Yeah.
There's a scene. What you could describe? There's a scene. Jason Begay played a CIA. This is a film that was intended for broad public showing. It was called TRs in Life. TRs being the training routines for communication skills. And it was basically a series of scenarios of people's communication going wrong and life just turning into a disaster. And at the end of the film, they all get lectured by Larry Anderson about correct use of communication. It's a crazy film. But Jason played a CIA director, and there's a scene in his office. And Sterling, you were the office boy who was kind of bringing stuff in and out, and it was just like this very funny vignette with all these there was like a 6'2" Russian blonde girl who you told me was a volleyball player. She comes in with a suitcase of money and says, you know, this is the pay for whatever. So go ahead, take it from there.
Yeah, and I remember that because the 6'2", and because I talked to her on the set, and I just remember that she was drop dead gorgeous too.
Oh my gosh, she's a supermodel.
Yeah, you know, it was, you know, I wish you'd had an apple box so I could have gotten closer to her face.
Yeah.
She was very tall, very sweet. But I remember doing that scene there, and just acting with Jason. Of course, Jason was just, I mean, for me, a breath of fresh air to meet someone, you know, and I knew, because I couldn't watch TV at the time, so I knew nothing about what he was doing or stuff. I just knew that, hey, this guy's fun. He would constantly tease me on set. He would just, you know, make the whole experience really fun. And I think he was just getting in and just getting, you know, indoctrinated into everything. So he was very playful still at this time, and nice to me, you know, just essentially a kid. I was still a kid.
Yeah. Jason was a great guy. He's one of the friends that I lost as a result of his escaping Scientology, which of course I was really glad that he did. Actually, a story for another time. You know, I spoke with him about 2 weeks after he left. I got a Tommy Davis handed me a tape recorder with a little suction cup and said, put this on your phone, and the boss wants you to call Jason because we can't reach him and we don't want him to be interviewed on the Matt Lauer, you know, Good Morning America show, and we think he'll talk to you because you're friends. Anyway, we had a really good conversation, and I never attached the recorder to my phone.
So good for you, because it's illegal in California.
Well, absolutely. California is what's known as a two-party state. So I handed it back to Tommy, and I said, I don't know, it didn't work. But anyway, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. And you know, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the original of that film was shot by Hubbard, and I think Dave Miscavige was that exact same part in the original film.
It could be. That's amazing you say that. I thought I'd seen all the earlier versions, but I don't. Maybe I saw it. I blocked it out of my mind. But that would be perfect. I mean, who else would you typecast as the little office boy? You know, that would be like. Of course, he would play that part. Yeah, those early films. I mean, that one never was released. If it was made, there was a number of films that they made that were so bad that they couldn't release them. And then if they made one that was a little better but was still horrific because it was better than the worst one, they deemed it okay to release. It's, you know what I'm saying? The scale of if a thing is acceptable or not is very relative. If you do something better than the last thing you did, but it's still one of the worst things ever done, but it's better, so you can run with it. It's a very strange system, kind of how they operate.
Well, and there's actually quite a bit of significance to that film, because what you wouldn't have known at the time is that when I shot the office scenes, I was in CMO Gold. I was the ops chief in CMO Gold.
You were senior to the whole operation.
Yeah, and I remember I would actually work all night because I was so excited about it. I actually twice when I came on your set, I had been up the entire night, came to your set with no sleep. I would sleep in between takes and then go do the shots.
Oh
after.
My God.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Sterling. I appreciate your dedication.
And that was rough. But and I believe also I think we didn't have a whole lot of air conditioning at the time either. So it was hot.
No, we didn't. Not until we moved into the castle. The castle was pretty well climated. I guess that's a word.
I got removed from CMO Gold, and I haven't told that story yet, but I'm going to talk about it on Aaron's channel probably this week. But because it has to do with Dave Miscavige. But you guys had already shot this film.
We're a David Miscavige friendly channel, so you feel free anyway.
No, it's all. Shot the film, and then I got removed from that position, and I was actually secluded under security watch over at OGH for about 2 to 3 months, and they were trying to figure out what to do with me. And it's a strange scenario, right? Because you guys have shot, I think, 90% of this film, and they just needed that last shot. But I was in it, and I was a part of the final scene. So I then get posted as the tree surgeon in the grounds department of Golden Era Productions, and I do the shot. We had to finish the shot. So there was a 3 to 4 month gap between when I shot the original stuff and then when we shot the end shot. And I don't know how. I would love to have been on the inside on how that conversation went down, because there had to be. I remember Lisa Schroer talking to me about it briefly.
Well, and what was her post at that time? Was she still my assistant?
Yeah, she was still your assistant.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh. Yeah. That woman.
Yeah, she's a special one.
Yeah, she's really special.
But yeah, so then we anyway, just being on set was like an escape. I mean, I don't know if you can imagine it, but there was a couple places where somehow, in most cases, you were kind of untouchable, meaning you couldn't be interfered with. You couldn't have, and this does go back to, you know, there's a constant, when you were there at Gold,
right,
at that particular property, that base,
right,
there's a constant fear of, and maybe not for you, but of the general staff member, of your world could end any day. It could be anytime. All of a sudden, at a whim, Dave or someone else,
right,
or Jenny Linson or something just goes, oh, that's the guy that we should go after. That's the guy that's, you know, creating problems. And so it was for me, the film set, you just couldn't be touched on the film set, because if you're in something or you're part of something and that schedule was set for the shoot crew, if someone pulled you off, they're stopping production of about 20 or 30 people. Yeah. So you couldn't be touched. Yeah. And I kind of knew that. So I had three safety nets, which were always days when, for whatever reason, nothing bad happened. One on the set, two when I was on the purif and running program, because they couldn't really touch you there. And believe it or not, the third one was rainy days.
Really? Oh,
statistically speaking, on a rainy day, nothing bad ever happened for me. So I always look forward to rainy days. The rest of the time, I was always on edge. And you know, I would avoid Dave Miscavige like the plague. Like, if I knew he was somewhere, I would not go near.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, my problems didn't start till later, but I know exactly what you're talking about, because eventually I fell into that. Because, as I've said, you know, if you work for Scientology long enough, it doesn't matter, Sea Org, professional, whatever. If you're dedicated to working for them, eventually you're going to become humiliated and traumatized. And the work that you did, the credit for it will be given to someone else, and you get blamed for a bunch of stuff you didn't do.
Absolutely.
It's just the way, it's the arc of your story in that organization.
It's the only thing that's guaranteed in Sea Org.
Yeah.
It is guaranteed. And that was one of the things that started running through my head, because I saw these veterans, all these people that had been there for so many years that I knew were competent and stuff, and they all ended up being removed somewhere. And I was going, okay, well, you know, I was confident and I was somewhat competent in what I did, but I see these people that I know are smart. You're Jeff Hawkins, you're Dan Coons. And I'm like, wow, all these guys are getting removed constantly. And what chance do I have? And I am not going to be 60 and washing dishes. I'm not going to be 60 and you know, using the blower on Saturday morning to get rid of the leaves. I just am not going to do that. So that started a little bit of a thought process for me. And honestly, being on the set too was a little enticing. You know, when my twin brother Justin left, he was an extra for like 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. He loved being on the set. He got to meet Jennifer Aniston once on the Friends set, he told me about. So he was, you know, he kind of dug that thing, and I knew that he was doing that. And anyways, you know, and my experience with you obviously was always nice and pleasant.
Oh, well, thanks. And likewise, we had a lot of fun. There were a number of people who left, especially in those early 90 days when not within a year or two after I got there, who had very successful careers somehow in media, in production, in some aspect of it. It was, I've spoken with a number of them since I left, and it was amazing. It was a really incredible group back then, and in the 90s. It was really amazing.
And I would say a core of them come from the cine department. I personally think that you look like at like a Mark Headley or even a Stephen Lewis. I mean, these are smart, talented, hardworking, and go-getters. You
absolutely.
You had a really good crew working underneath you. By the way, I was there when they just got the shit beaten out of them too. I was there when they were, you know, Mark tells the story about running the laps and sleeping out on the sports field. I was there and I saw them. And I felt bad for them because I knew how hard they worked.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that wasn't going on then. I'm just saying there was an amazing group of people. Like, You remember Monica Prince? She's married to somebody else. She left with her ex-husband Jesse. She became. Remember Monica? Did you know her?
I
She
think,
actually left before. Actually, right. She left right before you came.
yeah, or right around, because I do remember meeting her once, I think, but I could be wrong
Yeah.
about that. But maybe it was a Sea Day. I met her when I was still at the.
Yeah, Monica became a very successful producer in commercials and Nike and did all kinds of stuff.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then my script supervisor, PK Phyllis, I don't know if you remember her. She
Phyllis
ended up,
Knight. Yes.
yes, right, that was her name. She ended up, I spoke with her not long ago. She did very well, and she worked on political campaigns, doing video and media for politicians and stuff. So there was a bunch of people, and then of course there are people like Marcus Swanson, the cameraman, who I couldn't stand because he mistreated his juniors. They just disappeared, and it's just like
Just
hopefully
LRH's stand-in, by the way, right?
Yeah.
Always
But,
LRH's stand-in. If there's a back shot of LRH from behind, it was Marcus Swanson.
Yeah, he was an early one of the. I think he was the first body double because we did. I did a few films where we had to get very believable body doubles of Hubbard. Well, one of the things you mentioned to me yesterday when we were talking was about when we moved into Norton Air Force Base.
Yes.
I think we should talk about that. It's basically what happened is we started outgrowing the gym, the small studio, because I started defining productions as being bigger and bigger and bigger because you could hardly get anything done in that little studio. So we were renting studios in LA. We were renting studios just north of LA in a place called Valencia. And so with the planning going underway to build the castle, they were searching around for another studio, and I guess about a half hour from Gold in Ontario is Norton Air Force Base. Bill Clinton he closed a bunch of military bases. If anybody's old enough to remember that, they kind of restructured the military for the sort of battles that they would fight in the future, like in Iraq. They didn't need that kind of military that they had, so they had too many bases. So they closed Norton because it was probably 15 minutes away from March Air Force Base, which is yeah. So they put Norton on the chopping block. They shut it down, and then the question was, who's going to own it and control it? So the Air Force Base, the property was distributed to a consortium of business people in Ontario. Of course, the airport part of it was the high ticket item everybody wanted, and somehow that was given to the local Indian tribe. They had a casino. They had a lot of money. They're great people. They came and visited. Do you remember were you there when the Indians came and visited us?
No, I was not.
Did you ever meet them? They were great. The Indians. No. So the Indians got the studios. So then they were our landlords. They had no idea what to rent it for. I don't know how somebody at Gold found out, but all of a sudden we had the studio for like a fraction of what it would cost to rent a studio in LA. I was a little pissed off because I wanted to go shoot in LA because I lived there. And Norton was just, I mean, it had been abandoned. It was full of scorpions and black widows, and you can tell. I want to hear your impression of it, but it was a big studio, and it was built to withstand a nuclear war.
Oh yeah,
the sound doors, like on a studio where you big door you slide, which is soundproof. That it was probably 18 inches, if not bigger, of cement and steel.
Yeah.
And it was on this massive mechanism to move it. It was so quiet in that studio. It was built so that a supersonic jet, a fighter jet, could take off on the runway 100 yards from the studio and you couldn't hear it. And it was probably the quietest studio in the world. So we were there for, I don't know, Headley will talk about it. He was there with us.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Yeah. Tell me your
that place. Oh my God. It was like a blast from the past, because there was even some single-story offices that were around there. And I remember I was snooping around one time between shots. And I was like, let me check out these offices with steel desks and like right out of the 50s, right out of the 50s, and like a Project Trinity type feel to it. And
totally.
It was great. And there was still locked doors. There were still parts of the studio, even though you guys were renting it. I don't know if you remember this. You couldn't get to certain corridors.
Oh yeah. The
and the storage. Yeah, where they stored the film previously, for the military film, by the way. So this little known, I don't know if you know this, but Norton apparently was where they processed most of the military film
Yeah. Well, yes
and
and no.
stored it.
Actually, they didn't. Believe it or not,
Yeah.
I grew up in Laurel Canyon, right? And at the top of Laurel Canyon, there's a today it's Jared Leto's home. He bought it. It was converted into a residence a few decades ago, but it's called Lookout Mountain Station. You can look it up on Wikipedia. And Lookout Mountain Station was an Air Force station in Hollywood
Oh
that
my
was a
goodness.
film lab and film production facility. It's where all the Vietnam film was processed and given to
Oh
the
wow.
news. They shot propaganda films, but because they needed it in Hollywood, because they had people like Jimmy Stewart do propaganda films, and they also brought in technical people from Hollywood, technical skilled professionals, just like Gold did,
Mm-hmm.
to help them with their propaganda films. And then the other major facility that was part of that Air Force film production was Norton Air Force Base. And then they
Right.
had a lab, they processed a lot of film. But it's my understanding that the film they did was when we first went there, there was this elaborate set that they left because, when the government abandons something, it's like when they left Vietnam, they just jump on helicopters and they leave all their
Yeah, they were pushing them off aircraft carriers too. I
Yeah, they
think.
get their weapons and their top secret shit out of there,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
just leave everything else.
Yeah.
So they left this office. It was like the general set. Did you ever see that thing?
I didn't. I
It
did.
was
Now I wish
like
I had.
they shot all the briefing films in there for like the Vietnam War and
What?
crazy shit. Like some general would go in there and he'd sit down and, you know, pretend he was like, George C. Scott or something, and they'd shoot film and they distribute it. It was all just internal stuff. And that's what the studio was used for. And then there was this other rumor. Do you remember we were told never to go down there, but there were levels beneath the studio.
Oh, I did
Right?
not. But that's probably one of the doors that I tried to open
Yeah,
for sure.
it was Bobby Headley who picked the lock on the door.
Yeah.
He was a master lock picker. We decided to go in there one day, and we were told not to because there's no lights. They wouldn't tell us how deep it went. We went down about 5 or 6 stories, and we
Oh
felt
my
like we
God.
hadn't even scratched the surface. But literally, if all of your flashlights would have gone out, you'd never find your way out, and you would die, right?
That's a
And then
horror movie.
yeah, and then right next to the studio, there was a room with stainless steel tables, tile floor. Did you ever see this room? The
No.
stainless steel tables, tile floor, a big stainless steel like a sink you would see. It looked like an autopsy room.
Right.
Like
Right.
that's exactly what an autopsy room would look like. And so the big rumor was that that's where they'd film the alien autopsy.
Yeah.
They'd move the alien from Area 51 to Norton Air Force Base.
And okay, so
Yeah, go on.
I've read stuff about Norton later on in a book about reverse engineering.
Uh-huh.
I believe in UFOs. I don't have a tinfoil hat, but I believe that we're not the only sentient beings in this universe.
Right.
Start
Highly
the
likely
comments.
that
Let's
we're
go.
not.
But Norton had it had a aura about it. Shit happened
Yeah.
there for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Something went down there because it definitely had that. It was a fascinating. I mean, we even shot outside there. I don't know if you remember this. One of the other, it must have been a promotional video or something like that, but it was a 1950s outdoor drive-in movie theater.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and
Adjacent. It was adjacent to the studio.
Yeah, adjacent. And I remember there was actually there was a main person that you were filming, and of course it was just and they weren't doing something right, and you actually pulled me up from a car in the back and put me in the front in this particular scenario for whatever reason. And dressing up from the 50s was also awesome.
Yeah,
It was fun, and sitting at it like it was just an experience.
Yeah, your IQ was way above room temperatures, and that made you pretty special to most people.
And I could listen to you could tell me what to do, and I pretty much get the gist of it. Which reminds me,
plus you were in CMO Gold, so you were kind of my boss.
Yeah. No, never.
That's
not how that worked.
Not on the set, but
no. Annie Tidman was your boss.
Yeah, Annie. We can't say enough nice things about her. Yeah, that's right. She was with us at Norton constantly. I don't know if you remember. Yeah,
I did not remember.
She was there a lot. She just hung out. I mean, she was just great to have around.
Yeah, she probably didn't. She probably didn't order you guys around all the time. She was
not at
probably
all.
just observing.
She was what I thought an officer in the Sea Org was like, and boy was I wrong.
Oh yeah,
there was only one of her. Like nobody else was like her.
She was the exception to the rule. Yeah,
totally.
She had a very, very, even keeled sort of mannerism. If she wanted to get angry, she could, but she kept it even keeled and wouldn't yeah. And she wasn't Dave, who thought he knew better than everyone all the time about everything.
Yeah.
And he really, really didn't. It's like sometimes you just want to say, back off, man. You don't know. You couldn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So back to Jason. So that was my first film. We did the explosion scene. That's after I had been removed from my position in Simo Gold.
So then you were on grounds when we did that.
Yes, I was on grounds.
So when we started the film, you were ruling the world.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the film, you were mowing the lawn.
Yeah, that actual photo that is not makeup. That's after I had been doing deck work and after I've been removed from post. I just
Oh right, that's what you normally look like at the end of the day.
Yeah, I
remember that.
That's what my soul felt like after being removed from Simo Gold and removed. Yeah.
A light day at Golden Hour Productions.
It looks like a smile there, but if you look into my eyes, there's a lot of pain at that particular moment in life. Yeah,
wow, that's crazy.
But again, escape. Always being on the set with you guys was an escape. Working with anyone in the film, almost anyone in the film crew, was an escape. It was super. I don't know how to explain it other than it was just a.
Well, it was like
thank God, yeah.
It was a little bubble. I mean, it was this anyway.
It was a bubble, and it was different, right? It was different than the drone of daily life there at Gold. The musters. Oh, by the way, if you were on the set, you didn't have to go to muster either.
Oh, right, because you had to go right back to the set. We were like on a schedule.
Yeah, you couldn't interfere with it. So not going to muster meant there was a chance that if you did something wrong the previous day and they were going to announce it at muster, they'd have to wait and hopefully forget about it.
Probably it would be superseded by everybody else's screw ups.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you just made me realize that as time went by and they canceled using base talent, except just as minor little background talent, and they started hiring more professional talent and bringing them up from LA. Those people, they had to abide by both the California state labor laws and the rules of the Screen Actors Guild. So those people got an hour for lunch.
Oh,
so then anybody who was a staff member working on the film, they had to go to muster.
Oh,
you get what I mean?
Yeah, you got shafted on that.
Yeah, they were still having lunch, so it's that's why I always liked working on the films at that time, because I would just stay in the castle and eat with the talent and take a full hour for lunch. So
yeah, I'm surprised we don't have photos of the castle being built. I mean, that was an impressive building.
Yeah, I know. I mean, but I remember walking through that thing with Miscavige, that was his big thing. Crazy stories. I mean, I don't even know that they're even worth mentioning.
Anything that gives context to Miscavige, I think it is worth it. And
I can tell you one thing. This might be kind of difficult to. I'm just looking at some of the notes here. I'm trying to, you have to operate with 3 halves of your brain.
I know what you mean. It's
I just want to answer this one thing. Oh, maybe it was March then. I was somebody's talking about what was this? I remember Norton when I lived out that way. It was empty as near Wildemar where I was. Yeah, that's absolutely right. That was
I think San Bernardino was where Norton was, right?
Yeah, Norton and March, who was in San Bernardino. And they've shot a lot of movies out there, like military movies when they need those huge transport capable military hangars. Like a lot of Hollywood productions have used that part as a location. They try to jumpstart it as an airport any number of times, and it's just for some reason the only thing that attracts is filmmakers.
Well, it's too close to Ontario and in between Palm Springs and Ontario. So yeah, I mean,
it was there? They used to use it for a while. There was a business there that cleaned and painted passenger jets. They never really figured anything to do. I mean, that whole area is just a disaster, except, here's a little known fact, Sterling, blow your mind.
Yeah.
There's a thing, you can look this up on Wikipedia. It's called the blue zones. Have you ever heard of these? You ever heard that term? Blue zones. There's, I believe it's 6 or 7 of them around the world. One's in Okinawa, Japan. One's in the Caucasus Mountains in Russia. One is in Sardinia, I think. I'm not sure, but these are the areas in the world, the zones where the most people live to be 100 years old.
Wow.
And so it's been studied intensively. Like, what do these people all have in common? There's even a diet that grew up around it called the Blue Zone diet. There's a guy who was a very famous, decoder of data, who was the first one who put this all together. And believe it or not, what is the name of the actual town? Loma Linda.
Yeah.
Loma Linda is where the Air Force Base is. Loma Linda is one of the blue zones. It's one of the places on Earth.
Wow.
That shithole desert area is one of the places on Earth that has the most people living to be 100 years old or older. The reason is because of the Seventh-day Adventists. There's a bunch of there's a Seventh-day Adventist community out there.
Yeah.
They are vegetarian. They all hit the profile of people who live long, which is close religious community, respect for older generations,
yeah,
moderation in alcohol. They eat lots of legumes, believe it or not. You can read about it on Wikipedia, but this blew my mind because
you're going to start a diet fad, by the way, with your channel.
Yeah, I hope not. Yeah, we're gonna I'll do a Blue Zone channel. I think it's already peaked and petered out, but
right.
It blew my mind when I found out later that Loma Linda, where we were all working and living, for the day,
yeah,
is one of the blue zones. Because I mean, that place took years off of my life.
Well, also imagine shooting off property was a luxury at that point. You didn't, you couldn't get interfered with, really.
Not at all, except they'd have to drive food out to us, which was
which was, and then you had the transportation, and people with not enough sleep made it a little
and then you had to, when you went to use the restroom, you had to go in there and shoo away all the scorpions and the black widows, and literally, I'm not even kidding. We built, I believe it was a 7/10 scale model of the CIA headquarters.
Yeah.
Which we blew up, right? Where some Russian agent planted a bomb and just blew the whole thing up. So it was like one of these 7-camera shoots. And apparently, even though we told the local authorities, we set off car alarms for a 5-mile radius. and anyway.
Yeah,
it was crazy, but the explosion was so intense. A guy came from Hollywood, a very noted pyrotechnic guy, and spent an entire day rigging this thing with 50-gallon drums full of diesel fuel and some kind of jelly that blew up, and then stringing it with what's called primer cord, which is basically C4 explosive packed into clear plastic tubes. And when that thing went off, I mean, none of us knew what to expect, but there's a little outbuilding next to where the explosion was. And when we went in there afterwards, all of the air pressure had gone like boom. So all of the drywall and all of the ceiling panels had momentarily become unseated and then snapped back. So every nail in the building was protruding like 2 inches. And there was thousands of dead spiders hanging on string webs, because they'd all been killed by the pressure and just went and dropped.
Oh my.
And I didn't get pictures of that, but I will never forget what that looked like. Basically, the moral of that story is they let us do whatever the hell we wanted at Norton. So it was.
So the explosion was at Norton.
Oh yeah, no, we built that because we had like a few square miles of property. Yeah. And we did the proper thing. You're supposed to call the police and you're supposed to call the fire department and tell them exactly what time you're going to blow it up, so that they don't, muster the armed forces and think it's a terrorist attack or something. And they're limited to where they'll let you do that, but they let us do it there. And even with giving the warning, the switchboards, I mean, they told us later the 911 switchboards in that area just lit up. And car alarms were going off. And so you just reminded me, that same film began, no, not that same film, but another public film, TR1, TR as in Life,
Yep.
which you were also in.
As with Jason.
With Jason,
Yeah.
that film starts with a reenactment of a World War II scene to make the point that, you know, communication can get so bad, people can start shooting bullets at each other. And we went through a lot of trouble to, you know, it was like, you know, before Saving Private Ryan, it was like I was trying to stage that kind of scene in the same place where Sterling was when we shot that, the post-explosion, the CIA headquarters. Anyway, the explosions we set off that night, we went through all the normal procedures and, you know, told the local authorities and everything that we were going to stage a war. And 2 cows died.
What?
At the adjacent dairy farm. Yeah, 2 cows dropped dead during the explosions.
Well, so I was in grounds, and I remember when you did the explosion because I was sitting, and the shockwave hit the side of the garage, the estate building, which was made out of sheet metal.
Yeah.
And so the sound inside the garage when that happened was like teeth jarring, you know.
Yeah. I mean, if you were anywhere close, you needed to wear earphones, or, you know, you needed to plug something in your plugs your ears up, or your ears would be ringing for days. Yeah, it was like we were doing serious stuff. So we had a wonderful a guy, he's passed away, named Don Power, who was a famous Hollywood pyrotechnician who did that stuff. And you know,
can I ask you a question about that movie that I've always wondered?
Yeah, sure.
You started out shooting that movie in black and white.
And yeah, the whole film was in black and white except the last sequence.
Except for the last. Somewhere along the line, and the movie JFK had already come out, and they had done that in the recreation parts of JFK.
Right.
Did that have any influence on
no,
that?
Not at all.
Okay.
No, none whatsoever. Actually, they shot that whole film in color, and then they converted some of it to black and white.
Oh, okay.
We shot the film with black and white film.
Oh,
because that's something that I'd always wanted to do, because they stopped giving Oscars. They used to give 2 Oscars, one for best color, one for best black and white.
Yeah.
And they stopped. It was like in the early 70s. And I just, you know, I'm one of those people that I would like to shoot a silent film, you know, it's like, because these things are all valid art forms. It's just that they lose popular taste. I always want to shoot a film in black and white. So I convinced Gold to convert the film laboratory to a black and white laboratory, which was not hard to do. All I had to do was convince Miscavige, because he was such a fanatic about quality and stuff.
Yeah.
So when I explained it to him, he was like, "Yeah, we have to do it." So we actually shot the film as in real black and white. And I brought the guy in I brought in a bunch of leading experts to help us understand the lab and the shooting.
Right.
Because you have to learn to see in contrast, not in color, in order to shoot black and white. I brought in a guy who had done the restored the Hard Day's Night. His name is I can't think of it off the top of my head, but he was like the #1 black and white expert in LA. And so yeah, it was I just did it because I wanted to do it. And
you were sending rushes then to the film lab at that point, so you were no longer sending it down to LA.
No, we had the film lab. That was like Miscavige was, you know, it started with L. Ron Hubbard's. You know, this guy was like a complete amateur when it came to filmmaking. But then he wrote all these things about it that were all considered to be like the 10 Commandments.
Yeah,
it's a very dangerous situation when your amateur pontification is taken as solid gold. So he always would complain, you know, about Kodak and about Hollywood labs, and, you know, nobody giving a shit and not doing quality, and they're a bunch of criminals. So eventually we built our own film lab, which Kodak actually came to Gold and participated in. These are back in the days before people knew that Scientology was just just a toxic, evil, you know, horrific cult. And yeah, we did that film lab was actually, for some years, it was a beta site for testing new Eastman Kodak film stock. So
did not know that. Yeah,
and when I first went up there, they shot on Fujifilm, right?
Right.
And I was just appalled. I'm like, no, this is America. We don't shoot on Japanese film. That's not a racial remark whatsoever.
But I get it.
Yeah, because the Japanese were shooting films as long as we were. So were the Russians and a lot of other people. But I was just, you know, I was a Kodachrome baby, right? It was like, like it had to, Eastman Kodak did make the superior motion picture stocks at that time. Fujifilm was okay, but whatever. So I was like, no, we need to start shooting on Eastman Kodak film. And they're like, we can't do that because Hubbard wrote a thing, whatever you call them, saying that Eastman Kodak are a bunch of amateurs and they're criminals. And I'm like, wait a minute, let me see this. So I read this thing. There was this utter hatred at Gold of Eastman Kodak. It was the funniest thing because Hubbard used to shoot on this 16 millimeter film stock, which had a 35 millimeter corollary, and it was a very famous film stock. It was probably the one that The Godfather was shot on. It's a beautiful film stock,
right?
And they discontinued the 16 millimeter version, and he just shit himself. He couldn't believe it. He was like, these criminals, they're rank amateurs. They replaced it with a better 16 millimeter stock, but he never bothered.
Yeah, he never bothered because
he like these guys, they absolutely know. So he issued probably numerous bulletins about how, screwed up Kodak was. So they switched to Fuji. Then when I went up there, it took 2 years, but I convinced them. First it was, well, let's just do some tests and, blah, blah, blah. And then I convinced them to switch from 16 to 35 and to switch from Fuji to Kodak. So those were two of my contributions to Gold.
Well, my twin brother Justin actually worked in the film lab from its inception for like 2 or 3 years. When I don't know if you remember, it was going through this whole dirt evolution.
Oh yeah. Everything else.
There was a spot here, a spot there, and even pros that came up were like, "This is better than
better than anything in Hollywood." But they were flipping out from one piece of dust. And there was this guy, he was editor who, Gary Weesey. Do you remember Gary?
Do I remember Gary? Do you remember Spike Bush?
I do.
They're on the same level. They are characters. And Gary will forever have the word incorrigible connected to his name, and that's a whole story.
I think he might have ended up in the hole longer than anybody.
Oh my God,
yeah. But I had to work with him for years because he was the film editor.
Yep.
And he had the craziest ideas about how to edit films. But he would sit there at the Rushes Theater with a laser pointer, and as the rushes rolled by, all he did was look for dirt spots, right? There are two kinds of contaminations on a film print.
Yeah.
They're either black or white. And if they're white, it's a scratch or a hole. If they're black, it's dirt.
Yeah.
And he would point and say, scratch, dirt, boom, and he would just point at everything. And you couldn't even watch. And then anybody, on the camera, like if it was a scratch, it could be the camera department because that would be pre-processing, handling. If it was dirt, it was a lab, and he would just eviscerate people. He was a complete a-hole.
Yeah.
Sorry to get me off on that, but so your brother worked in the lab.
Yeah, he did. So I worked on pouring the foundations in the walls because when I had been removed, when I had left from Pool IC, I did the base EPF. When I was on the base EPF, because I was on the base EPF for about 2 months, I helped pour the wall. I don't know if you remember, the walls were made out of this styrofoam blocking. It was a new technology.
Yeah.
That we didn't know how to do. So if you ever looked back, the walls were all curved. They all bowed outwards because the weight of the cement when we poured them. But no, I was there when they did the structural steel. I actually dug with a shovel a large section of the foundations with a whole crew there. And so I remember seeing it built up from scratch up to where it was. And then when I got back into SEMO Gold after finishing the EPF and was a programs ops and then ops chief, Justin was in the film lab. And that was the whole time of setting that thing up. And there was so much tension around that building. And ironically, by the time it was really fully set up and running, digital started coming out as an option. But it was amazing building.
And digital. They did make a transition
eventually, right?
Oh yeah, no, they actually adopted it the right part.
Okay, when it was good enough.
Yeah, they actually adopted maybe a little too early.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. Because we purchased a first generation Aeroflex Alexa, which I think they should have waited for the next generation. But
which is always the rule. Yeah.
Sorry?
Which is always the rule for technology. Don't buy the first generation.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't quite the first, but the real way you switch is you have to recognize where technology plateaus.
Yeah.
And you need to make the switch at the plateau, because it's still not, it's when the evolution of it slows way down, that's when you switch. I was involved in that evolution of switching the thing over, and there was a guy, I can't think of his name, a CMO guy, who was one of these just people from hell, right? That you can't even believe such people exist. And he came to see me and he was like, okay, we need to make this switch to digital. How do we calculate if this is the right time? And I said,
Jeff
well,
Baker?
no,
Jeff
not Jeff.
Baker,
Jeff
no.
was a sweet guy.
He was, yeah. That's why I didn't think that was him.
Yeah,
but...
he was CMO Gold. No, this guy was just CMO. He wasn't.
Oh, he was CMO Int, maybe.
Yeah, CMO Int. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Gold.
I want to know who it is. I'm wondering if you.
He's a heavy set guy. I got brutalized by one thing I said to him.
Yeah.
Because I used the word money instead of beans. I kid you not. Because we were having this conversation. I didn't know this guy.
Yeah.
And he's like, how do we figure this out? And I said, well, you bought an Area 535 film camera. You paid cash for it because you no longer wanted to rent cameras. So if you calculate the number of days that we avoided rentals because you owned that camera, I can guarantee you that purchase, you got your money's worth. And I was immediately the next day thrown into a sec check for making it about money and not saying you got your, whatever the proper terminology is, being return, exchange. They don't want to ever.
Yeah, he reported directly back to Dave then, probably, because he didn't have.
No, because Dave, I don't think Dave knew about it. I think he probably would have run interference for me.
Oh, interesting.
But maybe he did. I don't know, because you never knew of Dave. You know, I did have my. Eventually, it wasn't so much with Dave, but he would always use proxy warriors. If I was,
and that's so he could come bail you out in the end and see like the hero.
Exactly. He could be the nice
so many
guy.
times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I kind of felt, but yeah, but the thing is that, I mean, you know, Steven Spielberg and what's his name, who just did the you know, the atom bomb movie. I can't think of his name.
Oh,
yeah, you know, and Quentin Tarantino, those guys, they've never shot digital yet. Yeah, they're still shooting on film. So there's nothing. Film's amazing. So
it is, right? It's always going to be softer and more. It's almost like what vinyl is to digital.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a little more organic. I don't know that we'll ever get rid of it. And Kodak, they didn't just stop making it. They kept evolving their films. Like today, this is way off what anybody who's tuned into this wants to hear, but they began engineering their motion picture film stocks specifically to be transferred to a digital medium. Okay. So yeah, that whole thing kind of, you know, those two things are pretty well married up, but you know,
which is a smart thing to do. Well, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Not at all.
Okay. And I've always wondered this. So there were times on set where, you know, it could be frustrating. I would say for you as a director, and this is my opinion. But what was your view? You had a job to get done, and you had the staff coming in, and some of them were couldn't take direction, to be honest with you, couldn't act really. And so sometimes if I remember you'd be like, okay, let's just get someone else. And what was did you have a thought process about that? Or, I mean, no one ever got in trouble, obviously, for it, but you know, it'd be like, hey man, I can't have you on there. I need someone else that can do this. Did you ever have any remorse or not saying you're mean, but what was your thought process on that, on, you know, picking talent or pushing talent out because, well, they weren't doing a good job, honestly?
Well, I mean, I consider that my job is 99% casting. So I would make certain that whoever I was going to have to work with during those days when the staff were in the films, or later when we were hiring a lot of pros, I would make absolute certain, because if you cast the right people, your job's a breeze. You know, you just surround yourself with good people and you figure out a vision for what you want to do, and your job is really easy. So you have to be a very rigorous gatekeeper in terms of who you let in. Right. But, you know, there's always somebody that would sneak in. There was always some person. I remember a conversation I had with talent one day. Somebody was there and they had one line and they were horrible. And the talent person said to me, but it's just one line. And I said, yeah, but if somebody took a shit in the shallow end of the pool, are you still going to want to swim in the deep end? Can I just
That
say,
is a good analogy.
but the turd is just in the shallow end. And I'm like, one dead moment in a film could just kill the whole film.
And you got Caddyshack as a reference. Clearly, if there's a turd
Oh,
in
yeah,
the film,
in
the pool, no one's going in it.
That was a candy bar, but clearly even with the
they
candy
didn't know
bar,
that.
yeah, no one's exactly. Have you ever seen Caddyshack? I guess that's scientific proof.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was that it did happen. It happened more. There were certain crew members, mostly in the props area, that I tried over and over and over to get fired, to get taken off the crew, but I couldn't.
Oh, really?
It was weird. It was you'd think that I could do it, but they would just nope. Like they just had to keep certain people on these posts, and they were really bad at it.
Well, you had Pete Blecka, Ron Somerville, Adam Lewis are the people I remember in props mostly.
Yeah, they were fine, but Larry Lester, I don't want to mention names.
Oh, I do remember Larry. I did a mission. I did the Y2K mission with his wife.
Oh, really?
Diane Lester. Yeah. Sweetheart. Really nice lady. People are gonna start going, did Sterling hate anyone? Everyone he talks about is a sweetheart and a really nice lady.
Well, I tell you something, folks, when you're nice, people are generally nice to you, and Sterling was generally a nice person, but I'm sure there were people other than David Miscavige that you intensely disliked. So
I mean, I'm gonna just to satisfy everyone here, I'm gonna tell you too,
the bloodthirsty YouTube audience, you mean?
Jenny Linson, Jenny DeVock.
Okay, I'll second that.
Yeah,
Lisa Schroer.
And then Russ Bellin, because Russ Bellin, who is the former head of
CST,
he's the only person that ever actually hit me.
Really?
He slapped me right across the face.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I haven't forgotten it. I don't think, and I'm not a violent person. I'm easy going. I'm a lover, not a fighter. But yeah, that dude, yeah. I stared him down for a little bit. Yeah,
that's a good thing, because I'm sure you swing a mean bat, so it's a good thing.
I use my legs and my torso, so I can get some pace going on that one.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I knew Russ. He's also spent a lot of time in the hole.
Yeah, I heard after I left. But
yeah, a lot of people did. When I first went up there was a lot of screaming and yelling and staff. I was really shocked. Yeah. And one day, Miscavige, he actually he issued a communication about how Gold, they needed to raise, in Scientology speak, they all needed to raise their tone level. In other words, they needed to become, at a higher emotional state.
That?
Yeah, and he was the one that was causing all of everybody was so tense and beating the crap out of each other, because this guy was just like brutalizing them. And then he's issuing this thing saying, you guys really need to take a look at your behavior. And it was just, I don't know.
There's back to the point we made earlier. He will, behind the scenes, he's stirring the shit, and he sets it up so he can come in and sound like he's doing something about that.
Yeah,
absolutely. But I wanted to add. Okay, so I know you don't love naming names, but I'm gonna tell you some people that were very close friends that I grew up with on this set.
Sure.
I'd love to hear what you thought about them. So, obviously, we've talked about Sean Alcock. It was like a you're the man. It was like a brother to me. I actually was looking through those photos that I sent you, and I have like 6 or 7 photos. And actually, Sean and I were both in 3rd grade together at the Carpenter Elementary School in Studio City.
Really? Right down the
he's
street
right in that picture. Yeah, so we've been basically near each other or in proximity.
That's him right there.
Yeah.
In the blue shirt.
Good guy. Yeah.
This is actually from a reshoot of the Professional Tiaras film.
Oh,
I shot it twice. I shot a third of it in a modernized, kind of updated set, and then Miscavige didn't like it, so we reshot it to look more like the original one. It means really stupid, but that's Sean. Sean's a great guy. My only problem with Sean is he was extremely homophobic, and I had to tell him to shut the fuck up about it. I pulled him aside one day and I said, look, maybe you were molested by your scoutmaster. I don't know what your problem is, but you need to shut up about that stuff, because I think it's really offensive. But other than that, I got along great.
Okay, I did not know that, but Sean was it was sort of an anomaly, because he I don't know if you ever noticed it, but he was a giant Vietnam War buff.
Really weird. He had a footlocker. I used to joke that Sean Alcock has a footlocker under his bed full of copies of Soldier of Fortune Like he was so into that shit. I never understood it. I
And
didn't
he
know about that.
spoke with a somewhat Southern accent every once in a while. And it's so
Yeah.
funny because I'm going, wait a second. Sean and I you could match our lives because we born around the same time, grew up around the same time in LA, to Gold around the same time, at the ranch around the same time. Where did he get the Southern accent from?
Well, he said he got it from when he was living in Florida, but he absolutely had a Southern accent, and he was kind of a gun-toting redneck. I mean, that was his persona.
Johnny Cash. He listened to Johnny Cash.
Yeah, but he was an incredibly competent guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he built special effects rain rigs, and like he was a problem solver. His role here was as what they call the shoot crew chief, which is the Golden Era Productions equivalent of a production manager, which was Mark Headley's old job.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is some shots. This is how you can tell the Scientologists from the non-Scientologists on this set. They're a lot more fun to hang out with.
Yeah.
So this was actually a set in the studio of how I was shooting the professional TRS course. I don't have pictures of the finished one. You can see it in the Gold video, the one I put up there.
Right.
But these are just some shots on the set. These are a bunch of, I thought that people might want to actually see some stuff from Gold. And I scoured all my computers and I have hardly anything, but I found these. This is the scene. This is the film you were in with Jason. It was like a period film set.
Yes.
This was the reshoot that we had to do.
I was the clapper boy, right? He was the director. I was the clapper boy.
Yeah, exactly.
So that means I had a line. Yeah.
Yeah, you did. You appeared over and over again. You probably remember Samantha. On the left is our. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It was
That's
a period.
Blast.
Yeah, I know. I thought I'd share that with you. This is from the 2000s.
I still speak to her ex-husband and one of my closest friends, Mike Brown.
That's
stand-up guy. Yeah. You probably had interactions with him. Nice guy. Really
nice. This is a period film set we were shooting for that film.
Oh, that's so cool to see this.
Yeah, that's pretty much the deal. I think that's let me just go back.
And is that's at the Gold base? That would be in the castle.
Yeah, this was in the studio. This was in the castle. The castle's really big. And there's somebody else.
That's Michelle Alcock.
Yeah. I put that up.
Oh, there's Chris. Chris is still there. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. Chris was. When I got busted at Scientology Media Productions, I had to go back to, as Miscavige put it, I heard you got returned to Gold. Like, he objectified people. They were just particles.
Yeah.
So people you were returned someplace. I was asked to form a second film crew. I'd already formed the main one. So I put Chris on as the cameraman. He did quite well. He's actually very talented. This is a rig we built. It looks like we're torturing this poor young woman.
It does.
But we would build these. Actually, I think Sean probably built this. It was with a GoPro. It was to shoot point of view shots for Dianetics because, you had to shoot somebody being injured from their point of view. This was a nice car. I really wanted to buy it. We were chasing that car in the desert. This is like a Gold location shoot.
Okay, and that's a rental, obviously, the rig.
Yeah, we would rent that shit. No, that's like a Porsche Cayenne. That's a very special, expensive rig. Nice. You could drive that thing like 60 miles an hour with a motorized, with a computer-controlled crane on it. It was really
that's pretty.
Like you could sit in the seat with a joystick and like swing the camera on it.
That's
do crazy shit. Yeah. So
you hired people to do that part though. You're not.
Yeah. I mean, because I got sick and tired of just being stuck in the studio, and my toolkit in terms of what I envisioned that you could use for films. I would just name this shit and they would, we would get it done because we pulled off enough of it without wasting the money. And then we got such spectacular shots. I mean, when I first went up there, like I got them to rent like Learjets and we'd go shooting clouds and all this crazy shit because they didn't know anything. And all of a sudden they had somebody that could, point towards and define different sorts of tools. So it was pretty exciting. So I got to do a lot of stuff up there. We were in Mojave Desert. Oh, this is a look at this famous selfie I took, but that's the crew in the background. That's actually Michelle being the assistant cameraman. She's standing next to the camera focusing.
Oh, wow. Is that John Gonzalez I see there too?
That is John. Yeah, that's John. And I don't know who the hell else that is. But yeah. Oh, there's Kevin McHenry sitting on the Apple box there.
Oh, is that Kevin McHenry?
Yeah, I'm sure you knew Kevin.
I did.
Okay, I just have to show you this shot. I did like a recreation of the advanced org of Los Angeles in the 60s, right? It was a historical thing, and any old time Sea Org person who was there in the 60s who saw this picture would absolutely freak out because this is 100% authentic.
Well, that looks like my mom's uniform from AOLA in the 80s still, though, when she worked.
Yeah, it probably was. Yeah, they
Yeah.
probably still had this in the 80s. Yeah, when she was my CS at AO, when I first met her, because I knew both of your parents.
That's insane. Yeah.
Yeah, so the curtain behind this actress, somebody found a photo of the advanced course room at AO. Wow. It's actually the solo, I think, solo part 2 course room.
This was AO. This was AO down on
Los Angeles. Yeah. No, on El Renhard. No.
Really?
No. You're right. It was the one Berendo, I think, wherever it was.
Okay.
Yeah, and they found 2 photos. They found a photo of what you would see out the window from across the street, and they found a photo of the curtain. So they photo printed with a huge photo printer. They reproduced the exact curtain.
Wow.
And then made a gigantic background out the window that was the actual view out the window. And if you had taken somebody from that era and drugged them and then took them in that set and then woke them up, they would have absolutely gone freaking insane because it was so authentic.
You could bring them back in time.
That stuff was fun. The movie that Jason did where he played the spaceman, this was the reshoot. You can see here how big the studio was. We were about to hoist this guy onto that wall back there. And and any of you Valerie fans, this was shot one of the last times I ever saw Valerie before.
I actually know Valerie really well.
I saw her once since I left, and so I should send her this photo because it's a great photo.
It actually really is.
Yeah, and it's
one of the nice photo.
One of the last times that I ever saw her, we were on location not far from where you live, down in Santa Monica on the cliff. Okay. You know,
right.
like where the pier is.
Yes, yeah. Where I play volleyball. I play
volleyball. We were down there shooting on location at Valerie.
Well, I'll reach out to her, by the way, and I'll give you her number. I'll ask her, and then I'll
send her number. You have it, but do. You know what? I'll send you this photo when we're done.
Okay.
And you can send it to her and tell her that I embarrassed her on YouTube.
Hey, nothing's worse than what Janice did with my baby photos last week. So,
oh my God, she really
I love her though, Janice.
Yeah,
I love Janice.
You were a good sport. You made a game out of it.
But that's the last. I'm not sending her any more photos.
Yeah, and this will give folks at home an idea of how that studio is really huge. This was for a title sequence for a film. I had them build a 7/10 model or probably 5/7. I don't remember what the scale was of the Irish National Library. This is an actual replica of one hallway in the library. It was really a spectacular model. It was miniature. I mean, they just spent weeks doing it. So, I mean, that's one of the things that made working there like tolerable is you could come up with, and what's this all about? You sent me some shots.
So I don't have the reverse angles. Like, what is this guy doing playing baseball, the gold base? So that was, I don't know if you were the director on this one, but it was a Dianetics how-to where I am the pitcher, and I wish I have the photo somewhere. I know it's somewhere. I just haven't been able to find it yet. And I throw the ball and I hit the guy in the head with the ball.
Oh yeah, no, I was there. This is the baseball diamond at Gold.
Yeah, so this is just me before taking batting practice, having a good time, getting as much, and I was in grounds at this time, getting as much baseball in as I could.
Right.
If I find the reverse photo, you guys did take a photo of me while pitching. You remember I hit the guy in the head, I beat him in the head, and then I run, and then I'm kind of distraught about hitting him. I feel bad about it, and all that stuff. Now, on that day, on that set, I did actually break someone's nose with a baseball. It was not the talent. I was playing catch with a kid named Odipa Willoughby, and he'd never played baseball before. And I fired over third base, and he didn't keep the glove in the right place, and he kind of dropped his glove, and the ball went straight and broke his nose.
God.
Yeah, I got investigated for that. And
I'm sure you did.
I just said, "Hey, I threw the ball." So all I did was throw the ball.
Yeah, I'm sure you both got investigated. I'm sure they were pulling him in, saying, "Okay, what did you do to pull that in?"
Exactly.
And then you got pulled in, and like, "What are you doing, breaking staff members' noses?" So,
but I was so stoked to be on this, by the way, like stoked. Like I got to wear my baseball pants. I was so happy. My Yankees hat, you know.
Typecasting, I think they call that.
Yeah.
And there's that one, and I think that's all I have of you. So, what is this?
So first, that's Nicky Cifarelli in the background, who was a
right.
cool kid.
Yeah, I remember him.
And if you watch Mark, and Mark tells stories about Tony Cifarelli, that is Tony Cifarelli's son, Nicky, Nick Cifarelli, and everyone, just a likable guy. Everyone, you know, he was just a fun person. This I did shoot with you. After one of the school shootings, someone at Gold had a brilliant idea to do a film about, or some sort of promotional about it, talking about school shootings and something was going to happen with that. And so they just needed a group of kids in the classroom. And somehow, I forget what the football thing was tied in, but you guys zoomed in on me flipping the football. I was just a kid in the classroom.
Do you remember, did we shoot that at a public school?
Yes, we did. Yep.
Yeah, like about 40 minutes away from Gold.
Yep.
It was actually for a film that never got completed. It was about the Scientology study technology.
Oh, that's right.
It was. We were trying to make this film from an L. Ron Hubbard treatment, and the scenario was some kid in the school, because he had a misunderstood word, because there was something he didn't understand in his teaching, he decided to come back to school with an automatic weapon and shoot the place up.
Right.
And because this was like, Hubbard had this great way of connecting tragic circumstances, of misdirecting their causality so that it appeared that Scientology had the solution.
Right.
So in this case, he was saying the solution to school crime, you know, if you talk to CCHR, it's caused by psychiatric drugs.
Yeah.
If you talk to others, they'll say, "Oh, well, that's because kids in school have misunderstood words that they don't know, and that leads to violence." So,
if you talk to wise, it's because they didn't have an org board. Just
exactly. They didn't, or whatever it was, they could connect some solution they have to the.
To be clear, I was not the shooter in this film.
No, you were not. You were not. No, I remember that kid, and the thing is. We gave him an Uzi, you know, the little Israeli machine gun with, you know, he had a clip full of blanks. So, man, it was really hard to keep that thing out of everybody. All the kids were like, "Can I try that?" You know, everybody always wants to shoot the gun. So. Another fun thing about making films, you get to shoot a lot of different weapons, but.
Right. That was that. I wish I had more photos. Someone does have a photo of a period piece I shot with you one time where it was in Greece, I believe. So I'm wearing a toga robe.
Oh, we did that over at the ranch, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I got the you guys, the curly hair all the way down.
Yeah, we put a bad wig on you.
Yeah. But anyways, I was going to ask you, Seth Price.
Yeah, he's out. He's out.
He's out. Okay.
Yeah, his lovely wife got pregnant, and they were amongst a few couples, you know, once that whole coerced abortion thing broke, and the church had to really start chilling out on that. If couples, I know 2 couples, they're still together, who left because they got pregnant. So, and you know, that had a lot to do with Claire Headley and her lawsuit and blowing the whistle and all that. I mean, they still put these people through hell. I mean,
they do.
You know, there were months when, you know, Seth and his wife, you know, they ate at separate tables in the dining room. You could see that they weren't allowed to talk to each other.
Right.
They went through some months of, you know, different, you know, what they call routing out procedure, but it's really just these terrible interrogations. And then they walked him off the property with a cell phone and $50.
Wow.
It said, "Toodaloo."
Yeah. Like, Seth was a nice kid. Yeah. He was actually a little bit older than me. He was one of the, as kids in Florida, and when we got later to the LA area, we always looked up to him. Actually, so did you ever visit the staff berthing off property at Kirby or Devonshire?
Did I ever?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, when I first went to Gold, they were just completing what are known as the G's, the little VIP cottages,
Okay, and that's where you
which they
stayed.
were getting ready for Tom Cruise to come live in. But I was actually the first person to move into them.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was in one next because I was going crazy. But I lived at one of those apartments for
Okay. Well, and I only
maybe
mention it
2 or 3
because
weeks.
just to show how close, how how there's so much connection between you and I as far as people we know. My roommates. So what we had was we had this standard 2-bed
Right.
apartment. And to save money and everything, what they did is they had one couple in the right bedroom, one couple in the left bedroom. One bedroom had its own bathroom en suite, and the
Right.
other bathroom was in the hallway. And so the second couple in the second bedroom had that bathroom. But what they
Right.
did is they sectioned off the living room with a styrofoam wall and a cabinet, not soundproof at all. And so actually Mike, yeah, and I was in that one. Mike Brown and Sam, the lady whose photo you posted with the
Right.
red hair, were in the left bedroom. Seth and Mamika were in the right bedroom, and Suzette and I were in the front, not soundproof bedroom, and we shared that bathroom together. So those were actually
Wow.
for like 3 or 4 years. Those were my roommates.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, all packed together like sardines in that tiny room, but nonetheless, they were my roommates, and so I got to know them pretty well.
Yeah, just for your info, and nobody else will understand this, but Sam's married to Chris Mayfield. They've been married for some years. So
I did not know that.
yeah, I mean, eventually everybody's going to be married to everybody. It's
for sure.
It's really a good thing that they don't allow children in this York because there would be so much incest. Like it would be like the South. It would be like West Virginia where everybody's related. Because anyway,
totally.
So I want to see if I have any questions. Okay. Hey, here's one for you, Sterling. So this is from Vegan 3. Does Sterling have any newer info on Andrew Barton? Nettie Jeanette, he mentioned, is Andrew's sister.
I never, Janice Gillum Grady knows all about that. I've never met Andrew, never knew him. So I don't have any information. Didn't know that he existed, to be honest with you. So knows the answer.
Right. Okay, so okay, here's just a little administrative note from Goldie. Please make sure you're still subscribed to your channel, as YouTube users have been reporting being inexplicably unsubscribed across all the platforms. That's either OSA or Body Thetans, or just the difficulty of maintaining a platform like YouTube.
Yeah. Thank you, Goldie. And honestly, I've heard of Goldie's name mentioned so many times, and I've heard she's a lovely person. I still don't know exactly what it means to what does she do? She's
a moderator. In other words, what that means is she sees all the comments before we do.
Okay.
And she decides if somebody is being a dick. She's like, puts them in a timeout, doesn't let it through. So she basically runs traffic control. The moderators run traffic control on all the comments. So.
All right. Well, Goldie, thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, and we don't get bad comments because everybody likes us.
Yeah, I did get the funny one with Aaron the other day where someone said they liked how Aaron's so comfortable in his seat and chair, and Sterling looks like he's in a race car about to take off. And I was like, yeah, no, that was true. Yeah, and if you'd seen the chair I was sitting in that day, you'd know why. So now I'm in my comfortable reading corner nook chair, which is soft, supple leather and much more comfortable.
Yeah, and you are surrounded by your posters of your favorite films. So
yeah, and if the camera faced the other way, you would see my vinyl, my record player, and my speakers. And this is where this is my morning sit and relax. My bookshelf's behind this, and just kind of get my chill time in.
Yeah, Nicola says Goldie is a moderating legend. We love you, girl. Yeah, I mean, the SB community, TV community, is so lucky to have so many people that are just interacting the way they do. What does this mean? Mitch picks galore on the old newsletters. Vegan 3, what does this mean? You're freaking me out here.
Galore on the old newsletters.
Okay.
Makes me sound like she's got those old newsletters.
Picks. I get it. Just you keep mentioning these newsletters, but you have my email address. You can email me at Scientology@thebiglie@gmail.com. So yeah, I want to hear more about this. I'm assuming but I was referring to pictures of gold, like especially back in the 90s, which was kind of a little bit of our golden age. Somebody made a comment about my referring to, what does this say? This says, in Canada, the First Nations have direct discussions of them as First Nations or Indigenous European descendants do not have the right to discuss them as Indians. Okay. I did not make an uneducated choice to refer to the Indians who took over Norton Air Force Base. That particular tribe and the Indians in California refer to themselves as Indians, although I prefer to call them indigenous people or native people, or if I know the tribe name, and I think they were the Coahuila Indians, I'll mention them by tribal name, but I'm fully aware of what it means to be referring to them as Indians, and they're like completely fine with it. They refer to themselves as Indians, and so they've kind of owned it. And that particular tribe of Indians, the ones that are out around Norton, they came and visited us one day. All of a sudden, I forgot to say this, but all of a sudden, like 3 like blacked out, like Chevy Suburbans showed up, with chrome wheels and really nice. And these Indians, these Native Americans from the local area, from the tribal leaders, had come to pay us a visit. And they all had like long braided hair and all kinds of turquoise. They just were really handsomely dressed, and obviously they didn't need the rent for the studio because they have their casino. They have a very successful casino or two. So I hung out with them a while. We talked, and they very graciously invited the entire crew, like, to be their guests at the casino for buffet and gamble, whatever we want to do, just like come on us. So I went back to Gold and I'm like, hey, we have to do this because these are our landlords, and it would be rude to not accept. We're gonna, we don't want to offend like the locals, because Hubbard was real big on manners in terms of going along with local customs. I really tried to get the crew a day off at the Indian casino, but nobody would go for it. I was just completely shut down. They didn't care.
Did you know that at the Gold Base, there was a Saboba reservation?
Right.
And we actually had the indigenous First Nations people from that reservation come play us in softball, fast pitch softball. We actually played several games against them. I played shortstop. Gary Weesey was on the team. Russ Grealick was on the team. And we actually played them several times. Once at their beautiful, they had a very, very nice facility on the reservation, and they came and played us. And we used to play them on a regular basis, actually.
Yeah, but I heard about it. I never saw any of the games because you guys did it on weekends.
Yeah,
I was generally speaking out there on weekends. Yeah, they tried to have a good relationship with the local native population, which didn't always work out, but
no. And that reservation was tough because there was a long history of that property. I think Laura Anderson toured that property and stuff like that. It's now theirs again. Good for them.
It reverted back to ownership by the that's great.
Yeah. So they have it again, and it is a pretty beautiful property. And I think they already put like in 4 or 5 softball fields up there, and so it's beautiful. Yeah. They probably took out the cactus around the sports field, which is the dumbest thing ever, to have cactus around a sports field. Especially when you don't have a budget for new balls. That's some really bright thinking there. Yeah. Well, it was the motif, and you cannot mess with the motif. So
absolutely not. Yeah. No, that's sealed in stone. Okay,
I'm actually 1/16 Cherokee on my grandma's side. Yeah.
Wow. I'm afraid to do my 21andMe or whatever it is.
I've not done that. I just my grandma, Biddy's mother was she was big on family tree, so she I think she mapped out the whole thing at one point. And
so you were able to calculate it by family connections.
I didn't calculate anything. I was told. Well, so I'm going based on
it got calculated. Let me see what we got here. If we have any more questions, because I think we pretty much covered it all. What is this? It was Janice that started the search for Andrew. I'm not sure who I missed the earlier. That's a 2000 apparently incorrect. Whoever told her that was incorrect. Anyway, I must have missed an earlier comment. Sorry about that, because I'm not sure. I'm not sure who we're talking about.
Yeah, Vegan 3 is on the warpath for Andrew. But yeah, you'd have to refer that over to Janice. I don't know Andrew. Yeah, she knows way more about it. She knows way more about that family. Nettie, I obviously was friends with, which would have been Sean's uncle, I guess, right? So
Oh, really?
yeah,
I never
yeah.
knew him. I never knew. I mean, my kids used to refer to Sean as Uncle Sean because they knew him when and he let one of my kids drive a car when he was like 6 years old. So, that's like,
that's forever. That's forever going to be.
yeah, but I think
yeah.
actually their favorite person was Mark Headley. So literally, because we spent a lot of time with Mark, and
Not
sometimes
surprised.
when he would escape on weekends, he'd come by our house for a swim and stuff. It was really crazy.
Not surprised.
What is this? Somebody here made a comment. Let's look at this. Dory France said somebody had asked Mark about the movie with the school shooting scene last night on their live. Very interesting to learn more about it today. Yeah, I think Mark and I are going to be talking about that. I spoke with Claire and she said, oh yeah, Mark, he thinks you guys should do a making of series about the 31 productions you guys worked on together. And I'm like, how does he remember that?
Oh, please do it. That would be, and so entertaining.
Yeah, because fortunately, Mark, like I said, he makes me feel cognitively challenged because I remember so little of that stuff, and I was living it.
But I'm talking about it now. It is quite funny that the things you start remembering. Like I'm talking to you and we're talking about films, and then I just start remembering all these little things around them. Like even the point that the explosion shot that you showed of me is like, I forgot that I had been removed from CMO Gold. I shot the first part of the film with you when I was in CMO Gold, got removed, busted, sent down to grounds, and then shot that last scene with you. I totally forgot that was part of that timeline. So that
and I had no idea.
Yeah.
I
me there is right after I had just been obliterated.
Wow. And I
had
no idea.
It's not a real smile.
Yeah, like I didn't relate to you as a CMO Gold executive. You were Sterling on my set and we were doing something together. And then at the end of it, I didn't relate to you as the guy who'd been busted to the grounds.
Yeah, right.
So it's like because I was in my siloed bubble. Yeah, pretty crazy. Got to say hi to Joe Giuseppe. We're going to be doing some content together.
Cool.
She's an amazing luthier and content creator. And anyway, so we're going to do something.
Fantastic.
Hey, so if you're still watching, I'll send you an email shortly right after this. So you mentioned. So Vegan 3 says, yes, Sterling, you mentioned one or two bad guys. I think that was in reference to earlier you being accused of liking everybody, which
I've got a large list of them. I just want to spread it out over a little bit of time. It's not worth saying them all at once.
Yeah, no, you don't want to blow that wad all at once. Yeah, there's nobody liked everybody at Gold. There was like people you were friendly with, intensely friendly with, and then everybody else could just fuck off.
Oh yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, I think we pretty much nailed it. Unless there's anything else you want to go over, I'm kind of done.
I mean, thank you so much for having me on. I had a great time. Catching up with you has been unbelievable. I really did enjoy my time I spent with you on the set, and I look forward to more of your content. And if you ever want me back on, you just let me know.
Yeah, we'll definitely do it again. I know we'll come up with stuff to talk about. If you think of anything, to shoot me an email. And
Aaron called me out last night, and I was laughing my ass off about starting my own channel. Because as you know, my sister, and just to annoy Aaron, my half sister, started a channel, and I think she has 7,000 subscribers in just over 48 hours, which is outrageous and fantastic at the same time. So maybe I'm beginning to go that direction. We'll see.
I mean, it's not a big deal. If you need any camera lighting help, just hit me up.
Yours is so well lit. I'm sitting here going,
I had to, because how could I go on YouTube and say, I used to, how can I write a book that said, how I made an evil cult look good, and then me not look, I had to like put my money where my mouth is. It's not that big a deal. Plus, you might be aware, I told the story online about the backdrop behind me was painted by a Gold Sets person.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
It
it was
looks good.
it was a gift. What's her name? Uh, Vibke Henson. Did you know her?
Oh, I did.
She was the one who was famously busted from the Hamburg
Yep.
org, and then
Yep.
she was like Miscavige forced her into the Sea Org. They labor trafficked her to the ranch in the RPF, and then labor trafficked her to Gold, where she's been ever since.
Just to hide the fact that she was able to pull the wool over all the executives of Scientology for so many years, and they didn't want to admit it because it would be so embarrassing.
Yeah, so they tucked her away. Unfortunately, she'd been an artist before she joined, even got into Scientology. She definitely has some talent. They put her, and I didn't know this until I left. You know, I worked for the church for 28 years, and I had no idea. And she painted this for me, and we spent about 2 weeks working on it. It was huge backdrop.
Yeah.
For some interviews I was going to shoot. And they, even though they have a ton of space to store things, they didn't have room to store this. They were going to throw it away. And she came to me and said, "Hey, you want me to cut a piece up and give it to you?" And everybody knew she gave it to me. So it wasn't like I stole it. It was just like, this is like me turning their satellites against them, like an Independence Day, you know. So there's your backdrop, folks.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No,
and
it looks good, man.
Thank you. And I also talked about it to honor Vibke, because she deserves to have some peace and some freedom in her life.
She does.
But seriously, anybody that wants to hit me up for any kind of lighting or camera for YouTube channel type stuff, it's really simple to do. And I know a lot of tricks that don't cost anything. As long as you have a decent camera and a couple of light bulbs, anybody can pull it off. So yeah, there you go.
All right.
I'm not seeing anything new here, so we're going to sign off here. Sterling, you're amazing. Expect me in Malibu one of these days.
Yeah, hit me up anytime. We'll grab lunch.
And we'll just hang out, and we have more to talk about. So everybody, thanks for coming by. I'll be back on tonight at 8 o'clock with another edition of Saturday Night Confessional. So everybody have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
See you later.